Hello and welcome everybody. Happy Tuesday and welcome to our Day One and Beyond series. This is a continuation, so we've gone through a couple different iterations of this series. And today I'm actually joined with Lynn Lewis and Brandon O'Leary. They're both cloud engineers on the customer enablement team. And I'm just kind of going through what Day One and Beyond is. So this is going to be a series that we're continuing on over the course of this year that's going to teach you how to use Oracle Cloud, different products. My name is Larry Beausoleil. I'm the Senior Enablement Manager for Customer Enablement. And we do have a quick poll that we're going to launch here to kind of get a level of everybody's experience and just understanding where everybody's at when it comes to this particular topic and just cloud infrastructure. So if you take a second to go through our first poll, and just kind of your general experience with cloud, with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, that would be fantastic. Keep in mind, this is being recorded. We will post it to the event page, so you can actually see this and look at other recordings that we have. We'll make sure that the information that's shared or the slide deck, that'll also be a PDF that will be connected to this. And for any Q&As, please post that in the Q&A box in Zoom. Today, the topic is OCI analytics, and I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Lynn Lewis and Brandon to continue us on. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and I'll be back towards the end to have a couple more polls to have you go through. Thank you all.
And thank you, Larry. Appreciate the introduction. And as Larry said, we're going to be going through Oracle Analytics today. And I'm really excited to be presenting this to all of you and to give you the chance to experience, if you haven't already, our OAC and our analytics products. So the key element here, I actually changed the colors myself, turned them into green because it is augmented. Everything about Oracle Analytics is augmented. It's just like pretty soon we'll all be augmented humans in the sense that we will be using some form of AI to do our jobs better. So it's going to be an overview. This was something that Gartner put together a couple of years ago and basically said that where we are now versus where we're going, and they anticipated it would be taken to 2 to 5 years. Well, it really has only taken about 2 to 5, closer to the 2, I would say, because you're going to see here with Oracle Analytics, you're going to have dashboards for monitoring analysis with natural language query and natural language generation driven questions and answers, augmented insights, open questions, and whether it be structured or unstructured data. So all of that's really available now in with Oracle Analytical Tools. And in addition, you can see that we're moving very quickly toward, if you go to some of our other products, our digital assistant, it has a chat bot that has all of this integrated as well. So there's a lot of capability that Oracle is providing you through OCI or Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. The key element of anyone working with data is to try to make better decisions. None of this is about, pretty pictures at the end of the day. And it's not about, impressing your boss with your skills. It's about doing the forensic work and the hard day-to-day work of taking data and beating it until it tells you something. Of course, there's a joke about that, about beating it until it lies to you. But that's the other reason you want to use an augmented system that gives you doesn't embellish, doesn't curve fit, but actually using pattern recognition and known tools develops better discovery. So you have the data, you're going to use tools to enhance the analytical discussion, if you will, the discussion between you and the tool. You're going to get contextual suggestions, and those contextual suggestions are going to enlighten your analytical results and that should give you good decisions for management to take action, or you to take action for that period. So the platform is exactly what you would expect, right? So underneath, at the very base, you have Oracle's infrastructure, and that includes compute, operating systems, Linux or Windows, different storage mechanisms, software-defined network. You've got layers and layers of security, and we are very much oriented toward a multi-cloud. You'll see that where we are traditionally very proprietary with respect to our data system, with respect to the rest of this, we are very much open and standards based. So we integrate with Splunk, for example, using Kafka streaming. We have a variety of different data integration tools because, again, it's about recognizing patterns in the data, and even in integration. Our data management supports big data, data processing, data flow. And of course, we have really put a lot of effort in over the last 20 years that has come to fruition with our autonomous data structures as well. Now, one of the things that you're going to see throughout this discussion is that where it's all about Oracle Analytics Cloud, these are actually the same tools running on different systems. So our Fusion Analytics Warehouse and our NetSuite Analytics Warehouse are using the same Oracle Analytics on top of Fusion data put in a warehouse and NetSuite data put in a warehouse. So there's nothing different with the Oracle Analytics on top and the capability in there. There's also another terminal here, Oracle Analytics System, where server, which replaces our BIEE, where it's on premise. So that's the case. In addition to these tools, you'll see that we also are very tightly integrated with our data science tools that we put in place. And these include not only SQL, but Python and R. So whatever is your tool that you like best, or your data scientists like best, don't have to throw it away. You can use it directly with Oracle's tools. And of course, the whole idea is to build something on top of that. So we have our digital assistants capability, our chatbots, if you will, different language tools with respect to natural language generation in multiple languages, speech generation in multiple languages, understanding vision, anomaly detection, and forecasting. Simplify, unify, I've already implied all of this. Even though I'm going to focus on cloud analytics, this is across the board. The analytics portion is the same. The augmented portion is the same. It's not even the difference in the structure and the data underneath. It's just where the data is coming from your on-premise situation, from Fusion, or from NetSuite. So the idea is that there is a pattern in the way we work with data. First, there's data preparation, which unfortunately, as someone who has worked with data, you spend a lot of your time trying to make it fit into the boxes you got in your head, in the columns you've got in your spreadsheet, and into the regions you have in your data system. You're working very hard to do that from the very beginning, and then you're adding to it. You're working through the data flow, and then you're looking at adding additional bits and pieces from other sources to enrich that data. Then the other side of it is data visualization, so that you can see what you have put this in place so that you can visualize what you can see. You can visualize the data. And again, we're going to apply machine learning to these common situations where the phrase that keeps hitting my mind, of course, is in any case, automated forecasts and insights come from this. And then you have natural language processing, natural language generation, mobile application of this to a bot, because once you do all the work in the cloud, you can deploy this at the edge. And then, of course, it's all self-upgrading, patching, and securing. This is a service at the level. We're asking you only to manipulate the menus, if you will. And we're going to make sure that the underlying data is in a data system that is up to date and patched. We're going to make sure that our analytics tools are up to date and patched. So feel a little repetitive in this state at this point, because that was pretty much the same slide we just went through, right? But the idea is that at every stage, preparation, flow, enrichment, visualization, applying machine learning tools through auto ML actually underneath, and then through natural language tools as well. All of these things are augmented through machine learning, pattern recognition. So there's OAC, Oracle Analytics Server, Fusion Analytics Warehouse, which includes all of these, are different tools that Oracle has that we call our Fusion tools, right? So we deposit these for whether it's sales, whether it's customer, whether it's human services, whether it's managing the corporation through ERP, or our NetSuite friends as well. All this is that particular data in that particular database, but still with Oracle Analytics before it. So in the cloud itself, you have the security and the governance and compliance. Those things don't change. Anything that you've learned with respect to setting up policies and networking and the rest of it is exactly the same. You can bring in multiple data sources through the connections. You can schedule a data flow. These things that you put in place through analytics is what you would expect. You can create a data flow with one set of data and then apply that flow to new data and different kinds of data as well, if it's appropriate to the work. Now, if it throws an error, then you're going to have to go back and figure out where you perhaps should create a new data flow. One-click analytics, that means that once you get it all set up, it's one click, because there's a lot of clicks involved in putting the old process together. And smart data profiling, again, that goes to the fact that we're looking for patterns. We're looking for the usual suspects in the process of putting together the information. And information data transformation and cleaning, we're going to do that for you as well. Going to make suggestions for you, I should say, because we're going to say, if I were you, I would do this. If I were you, I would change this format. If I were you, you might take a look at adding this column to this column for data enrichment. It'll still be a choice you'll have to make. And Brandon's going to show you how it's presented to you in the tool later on in this presentation. So the key to all of this at every level, and in fact, let me skip this right now. As you might suspect, we have rich language models across multiple languages embedded into the system and inside Oracle's cloud, as well as metadata data search. So metadata is what allows us to be more than simply a relational database. Over the years, as time went on, primarily because of the requirements of BIEE over the last 20 years, we started including other connections to the relational data that would be called loosely metadata. And then that gave us the ability to do spatial data, no SQL data, value, key value constructs inside the data, all using Oracle's database. So all that's in place for you, and you have the capability to search the metadata as well as using all the different tools, whether it be SQL for relational data, whether it be no SQL tools, whether it be Python queries, whether it be natural language query. These are all capabilities that are built upon Oracle's relational database because we have that metadata attached. And so all of that is enhanced, augmented, if you will, by AutoML to include AutoML insights, AL insights. So that's how this is all put together. In addition, and I strongly suggest you take a look at this in the documentation if this is an area you want to look at, is we've added significant amount of data that is in many cases labeled and is appropriate to specific industries. So if you've got your own data and you're looking at building a machine learning tool, we have more data for you to look at than what you might have. So the content can come from just about anywhere because the fact of Oracle's data system can talk to a variety of other kind of data systems, right? We can integrate through streaming and real time. We have different data integration tools. If you look at our, what used to be called Oracle's integration processing is now Oracle integration, and it's actually a suite of tools that you can utilize when you need it for what you need and only pay for the time you use it. So, and the resources underlying to it, you don't have to buy a license forever. The structure, it can be multiple structures as I just alluded to, and you can see that we can do graph, spatial, and this is because we have JSON and now we can do JSON Geo. So all of these are capabilities that come from the additions that have taken place in the industry that we have adopted and implemented in Oracle's data system. And then the analytics sits on top of that, and who consumes it is a data bot, a chat bot, excuse me, a data scientist, an analyst, and a line of business user. So this is just a linear path that often is not linear. If you've ever worked with this data, you have some connection, you do some preparation, and then frankly, you might think about adding additional things, and that would you'd come back and do additional connections and additional preparation. And then when you actually started to select columns and analyze sentiment and add metrics, that's when again you would, do I have what I need to get what I want? Am I creating a bad model because my data isn't right? Is my data skewed? And if my data is skewed, am I going to run into ethical concerns about, because of the data, the lack of data I have is going to make things worse instead of make things better. So let's go back and see if I can find better data, prepare it, transform it. Now, when you're satisfied with the process that or the data that you have and its columns and what you're seeing is, you think at that particular point makes some more sense, then you run a hypothesis on it, right? So you're trying to first blend in the multiple data for the model and then run a hypothesis to see if what your think is, or perhaps discover what you never expected. We all hope for that. And then we see if we can predict the future or the next level, and then often you're starting back over again. The key element of all this is with our analytics being augmented, all of these different steps, yes, you have to do them, but they should be faster for you because the machine is doing the work. I mean, if anything that's happened over the years, last 30 years, is the cost of our data scientists and our expertise, our experts may have increased, but the cost of compute time per hour, the cost of using a core for an hour goes down. So that's why you can, in some respects, think of this as throwing data throwing the server at the problem while you go get a cup of coffee. So yes, you do need to know the structure. You do need to understand the processes that are going on underneath, but you let the machine do the dirt work, the iterations that take place. Now, this is an example where you're trading a connection. You're looking through the number of connections that are out there. You find what you want, Salesforce, and then you create it. And that's really the idea of the connections at the first time. So we have more than 100 connectors, including REST API. We can talk, of course, to Autonomous Data Warehouse, all of our Fusion products, Amazon Redshift, ERP, Microsoft, of course, Snowflake, Salesforce, Google. We know you've got data in a lot of different places, and we want to make sure that you have access to that data through or for use with Oracle Analytics. So this is an example that Brandon actually will be using, and he'll show you that you will, when you bring in the data, and in this case, this data was brought in through a spreadsheet, you'll see over in this column where you get some recommendations and then some of the choices you can do over here to actually execute based upon the choices you make over there. So as I said, he'll walk through there. You can rename and transform columns. And again, you're not, don't get the impression that this is a pre-run demo. Yes, it is. But at the same time, the data is, the machine is doing the work for you, right? It's looking ahead. It's recognizing the patterns. It's making suggestions. It's giving you, underneath here, of course, are SQL commands to join. So this is the type of things that the system will work for you. Transform the data. This is an example of where you filter and use SQL queries, but you can use SQL queries, but you can also use symbols too, right? So there's the menu item. So underneath here, of course, is SQL, but you can look at aggregate, split, merge. You can save the data into a database or into a cube and analyze the sentiment and look at different methodologies for forecasting, because depending upon what the data looks like, the system is going to make some intelligent choices about where to forecast. So it's going to map and model the data sources. It's going to build logical business views. Drag and drop is allowed. You're going to pull that in together. You're going to change it around. You have the decision-making capability at every level, but the system is going to make rational decisions based upon pattern recognition of the fact that data from one marketing is pretty similar to another marketing program. And if it's not, then that's where you can step in and make changes to it. You're going to do inventory, right, on X, Y, Z in bins in different locations by different seasons. All those things are things that you can do manually if you want to, and you can, but you know that regardless of what's in those bins, there's going to be a pattern of replenishment and cost related to those replenishments, and all that will be available to you through this system, and it's going to make some guesses for you. And so it's going to explore the data. Here it's showing you some visualizations using our auto insights, and it's one of those things where you're looking at, given the kind of data that needs to be presented and what's been done before, it's going to give you suggestions on how to do that, including you can put together some natural language processing and natural language generation. Of course, this implies sentiment analysis, so it can even give you some idea of, depending upon what you're looking for, where you're looking for it, where to put more emphasis on a particular kind of data as well. So, and maybe go search for more data in that area. Noted it's real-time data exploration. Machine learning, drag and drop. Literally, these are pre-built algorithms. it looks based upon your data. It's not completely dumb, right? In the sense that it's not going to take and run you through every algorithm that's out there. We could do that, but we're not. What we're going to do is, given the kind of problem it is, we're going to look at the different algorithms that make sense for that kind of data. And then we're going to run through all of those. So again, we're not worried about burning some OCPU hours because OCPUs are going to run whether they're being used or not, right? As long as there's power connected to them and the toys are on, they're gonna at least cycle. Maybe they'll downshift a little bit depending upon the what's in the socket. But for the most part, they're going to be flipping at 2.4 gigahertz forever. So here gives you some of the idea of the flow operations. As much as anything else, this is for you to have in the PDF afterwards, because I don't expect you to read through all this, and I'm certainly not going to read through all this now, but this is where you can maybe print this out, put it on your cube wall, tape it up there, and you can see what each of these things mean. And after the third time you do it, you'll have it memorized. But to begin with, these might be useful for you to recognize inside the menu that this is what it's actually doing. And in the machine learning, this is what I was referencing. So if the data looks like you're going to be doing a numeric prediction, or it's in a multi-classified fire, looking at training a multi-classifier, or training in clustering, or binary classifier. These are the kinds of algorithms that it's going to use inside there, right? That on its first pass to get a reasonable result. And it's going to tell you what the result is from all of these and which one is the best. And maybe you're going to decide, well, maybe I didn't, and maybe it didn't choose the right model. So only at the end do you apply it the way you want it for the real data, so to speak. Then you can look at different database analytics and graph analytics as well. Another menu, as much as anything else, that's why it's here. But some of this is intuitive, but I at least like to have something to have as a go through as beforehand, right? So you can see what the different things look like. And here's the different algorithms, as I mentioned before, for numerical prediction, multi-classification, clustering. It's going to recognize where this sort of fits, and then it's going to try all of these in each of the different columns to give you the best answer based upon the data you have and what it thinks you're doing and what you're telling it is doing as well. Visualizations, this is not going to be a lot of new information either, because you guys have, being the pattern recognition animals you are, you now figured this out, right? No matter what menu, no matter where we are in the analytics process, we're going to make it easier for you by looking ahead, seeing the patterns that are in the data faster than you can, and then giving you choices on how to display the data, starting out with the choices that are most commonly used through the industry over the last 40 years. So here's an example, and you can see the menu items here for the visualization. And I would make this a lot smaller. It's pretty, but it'd make it a lot smaller. Instead, I would focus on the route and the destination of the route. Likewise, though this does, I think, show you some good information with respect to the hotspots here. And I would not have thought of using a heat map for a particular terminal, but as you could see, while during the time of day, that this would make a really good sense, and particular be good to, as the air traffic controller or the tower guy trying to move the aircraft from the parking location to the respective runway and vice versa, not interfering with somebody else taxiing in while you're trying to taxi out. So this is an example where it's actually in our innovation lab, and it shows you one of the robots we're playing with, shows you it's moving around, what it's seeing, where it's seeing, and how it moves around the lab itself, some of the data it gets there for you, actually done with our tool. With that, I'm going to give up control and let Brandon.
So when you first log into the Oracle Cloud Console, this is going to be the main page that you're greeted with. To get to the Oracle Analytics section, you're going to go over to the top left menu up here and go down to Analytics and AI. And then from there, we have our Analytics Cloud offering here. So we can go ahead and click on that. So if you don't have an analytics instance, I'll show you the provisioning process, and then we can take a look at the actual platform, take a look at, working with the data set and then building some visualizations from that. So first, to create an instance, you navigate over to the analytics section and then click create instance. So here, you're going to give it a name, and then optionally, if you wanted to give it a description, you could do that here. You're going to want to make sure that you're working within the appropriate compartment. For capacity, so there's different options here. You can choose OCPU count or the number of users. If you know how many users are going to be using the platform, then you can do it that way and enter the user count here. For this, we can just choose OCPU. So one OCPU is going to be, fairly small for non-production purposes. You can also scale this, from between 2 and 8. So if you planned on increasing the amount of users, or, having certain times where you would see like peak usage or like increase in usage and demand for the server, you could set it up to actually have scalability. So it can scale between 2 and 8. And then there's also options that you can provision for larger CPU counts. When it comes to license and addition, you can choose license included, or if you had a middleware software license, you can use BYOL. And then there's different editions. So there's the Enterprise Edition and Professional Edition. The Enterprise Edition is going to have more features built in. After you set up all your configuration variables here, you click create, and then within a few minutes, the instance would be provisioned and ready for use. So after it's provisioned, you're going to be brought to a screen like this. And to access the instance, you can go to the URL here under access information. All right, so now we're heading over into our OAC instance, and this is the main page of the platform. You can see the recent things that I've been working on here, like some different projects and workbooks, and also the data sets that I've brought in and created, either from Excel spreadsheets or connections to different databases. As Lynn mentioned in the presentation, there are many different connectors that you can use. So in order to create a connection to a data source, you would come up here and click create, and then you can go to connection. And here, we have many different connectors. So these are all pre-built, and we have connectors to Oracle applications, if they're on-premise or if they're cloud-based. We also have, like your NetSuite connectors for the autonomous data warehouse and autonomous transaction processing. But there's many other connectors that you can leverage. And you can also create data sets, and bring in like Excel sheets if you wanted to do it that way as well. And an example of what one of these looks like. So if we click on like autonomous transaction processing, you would just give it a name, upload your wallet file that you can download from the autonomous database, user console, your username and password, and then you would select your service name for the connection. All right, so after you create that connection, you're going to want to create a data set or bring in a data set. And we can take a look at this data set here that I have as an example. So this here is revenue data that is related to a company that sells different electronics. And you can see the data here. So after you bring the data set into Oracle Analytics Cloud, it's going to, give you like a staging area where you can make modifications to the data. And on the right-hand side, it's actually going to leverage machine learning and provide you with different recommendations on how you can enhance the data set before you bring it into the analysis stage. So as an example, we can look at, this date column. If we click on this, it's going to give us some recommendations around the date column. And let's say I want to extract the, quarter from the bill date. So I can click on this and it's going to go ahead and create a new column for us. And you can see the quarters and the years in relation to the bill date here. And then from there, you can use this column as, another data point that you're going to run your analysis on and create your visualizations from. All right. So after you, stage your data and prep it for visualizations, you're going to go ahead and create a workbook here at the top. And it's going to, pull that data in, and then we can go ahead and create visualizations from it. So on the left-hand side, we can see our data set, and this is in, from an Excel spreadsheet, the revenue data. We have all of our different column names here. On the right-hand side, it's going to, automatically generate insights for you. So if I wanted to use any of these visualizations, I can easily, drag them in if I wanted to see like the yearly trends and then the 80-20 for revenue. I could drag those in and, have them directly created into, the dashboard. And it also leverages like natural language generation. So you can see that here, how it's generating human readable language around the data points that I put into the system. All right, so from here, we're going to create some visualizations, and this first dashboard that I'm going to create is going to be all about the revenue data. So here at the bottom, I can click rename and I'll call it revenue. And then, for starters, I can just drag in the revenue amount and we can see that here. Once you have, your column selected, you'll be able to make modifications to the visualization. So by default, it's going to automatically pick the best visualization that it deems fit, but you can change this if you wanted, like a bigger tile, you can do that. We're also going to pull in some other data points like revenue, production, line of business, and then production type. And we can pull these all in as well. So if I do production LOB and then production type, we can see that here, this graph or this bar chart doesn't look, the best. So we can change this to a donut visualization. And we can see, the amount of revenue by each different type, colored by line of business. Let's create some more visualizations. So I'll take revenue and product type and put this at the bottom. And we'll do a stacked bar chart. Add in the color here so it matches up with, the color of our donut chart here. And then we can create one more too. So we'll do the amount of units that were sold by company, by product type, and then we can drag these in. If you hold down control, you can actually select multiple data points at once and then drag them all in. And then from here, we can reconfigure the dashboard to how we want it. Let's say we want this one to be configured as a stack bar as well. We can do that here. Kind of cleans it up a little bit. So when it comes to the actual visualizations, there is different options for filtering and also sorting. So if we wanted to sort by revenue, high to low, we could do that here. And then we would see that going from high to low. We can also drill into a particular data point. So as an example, I'll select camera from this visualization. And after it's selected, we can right click and hit keep selected. And it's going to dynamically update the whole dashboard in relation to the data point that I selected. So now we can see all of the revenue that is related to the product type camera. We can see, it falls into the line of business that is digital, and then the amount of units for the camera that were sold from each different company. We have like 29,000 for GenMine Corp, and then Stock Plus had 27,000. If we wanted to go back, we could just leverage the back arrow. Like let's say we wanted to zoom in on our bestseller. We could click on audio and then just keep selected. And it's going to dynamically change the whole dashboard. So that's a brief overview on how to build out some different dashboards. And we'll make a new canvas here and we'll take a look at some time series data. So we can go ahead and pull in some data like our bill date. So let's pull in the quarter, and then we can look at revenue, pull that in. Another one we can do, actually, let's choose month because that gives us more data points on the x-axis there. Another one we can pull in is the bill date month, and then also the units sold. So we'll pull those in and put that right underneath. So we can actually compare the amount of revenue that's being generated each month and the amount of units sold. So what's interesting is that we can leverage some artificial intelligence that's built into Oracle Analytics Cloud to actually run forecasting. So in order to do that, we can click on the visualization that has time series data, and then up here in the middle over here, there's different properties of the visualization, and you can make modifications if you wanted to add a different background in or change the legend or add a legend in. You could do that here. But for this example, we're just going to go over to the statistics section, and then we can add a statistic here. We'll go ahead and add a forecast. So now we're actually running a forecast on the next 3 periods, and it's projecting that our revenue is going to increase in the months of January, February, and March of 2011. So, if this data was like for 2022 or last year, you could actually forecast for 23. And then we can do the same thing for the units sold. Add a forecast. And then that's going to, update, and we can compare them side by side. You can also, change the number of periods. So if you wanted to forecast out for 6 months, you could change that here, and then that would be reflected into the visualization. All right. So we'll do one more canvas. And for this, I'm going to take a step back and look at the data. And here's the data diagram. So we just have our data from the Excel spreadsheet, but I also have a connection to an autonomous database, and I'm going to pull in some data that is, related to this data, but it's not exactly the same. Like some of the data points match up. It's correlated. So we're going to go ahead and add a data set. We'll bring in the city mappings. So this data set, it just maps the office locations to the different cities around the United States. And automatically, it's going to create a connection between this data. Even though these data sources are disparate, we can see that the system automatically recognizes that they are related. And it's going to go ahead and map the company name and the office name within the data diagram, the data preparation phase. So after the data is, correctly mapped and matched up, we can go hit OK. And then we can flip back over to the visualization portion at the top here. And, essentially we just brought in data from another source. And now we can see that here on the left-hand side. And we can go ahead and begin analyzing this data. So we're going to bring in the city. And we'll go ahead and grab a data point from our original Excel spreadsheet, which is our revenue amount. We can pull that in. And then from there, we can go ahead and change the visualization from a table. We can use the map feature. And as you can see, it's going to plot all of those data points on a map. To make it a little bit easier, we can actually bring in the revenue data point again and correlate that with the size of the circles on the map. So now we can see pretty clearly that the larger and darker circles are the locations that we are generating the most revenue from. And we can see those reflected here. So as an example, if we look at Spring, Texas, we can see that we're generating, $369,000 in revenue, or we have generated that amount. And you can also change the underlying map here. So if you wanted to go into the properties of the map, and let's say you wanted like a Google map as the background, you can actually go in and change the different map types here. So here we have a background map. We can see that our default is Oracle BI, but let's say we wanted to use OpenStreetMap as an example. Or if we wanted to bring in, Google Map, we could configure that through the managed map backgrounds. You could add Google Maps. You just have to generate an auth token from the Google Maps API side, and then you can import that through this manage map backgrounds option. All right, and then once you are done creating your visualizations and you get them the way that you want them to be, you can go over to the present section, and here you can add canvases. So as an example, we'll add in the revenue canvas, the canvas number 2 that we created. And then from here, you can, share the visualizations out, or you could present them to your audience. You can also export these projects in a DVA formats. If you wanted to have other users work on them with you, you can put them in a shared folder, and you can have multiple users work on these projects in parallel. But let's say you wanted to, generate this report and send it to your boss. You could export this in a file. You can have it as a PowerPoint, PDF, or if you wanted a DVA file, so they can take the whole, package that you created and then import it into their Oracle Analytics session. Then they could do it that way as well. And then they can, upload it and interactively, change the data. and interact with it. All right. So that about covers the Oracle Analytics Cloud demo. I'll hand it back over to Larry for any closing thoughts or comments.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lynn and Brandon. Let me real quick check and see if there's any questions that we'll be able to answer. It looks like we got most questions answered. I know that there was one that was kind of asking about roadmap stuff. At this time, we can't really go into that, but definitely keep an eye on the analytics page for future releases and everything like that. But thank you again. Thank you everybody for joining. We do have a couple quick polls here. So we're going to launch a quick final poll. There we go. So for day one and beyond, any additional topics that you would be interested in, please go ahead and fill this out and let us know. It'd be greatly appreciated. And thank you, like I said, thank you again for everybody that joined. The recording will be posted later on Cloud Customer Connect. And then any documents and everything we'll be able to send with that. And then one of our final polls, I guess we'll give this just a minute or two, and then we can run the last poll. Last one, just kind of going over on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this webinar? And just remember, this is something that we want to update, change, modify, make better every time. So please, let us know what your thoughts are. And definitely looking to see you again in our next one. And please visit our Day One and Beyond page if you want to join any of the other trainings. We're going to be adding new ones to the series, so please definitely come back and join us for another round. Thanks again, Brandon and Lynn, for delivering some analytics and teaching us some new stuff today.